So in today's episode, we're going to talk about why you need a plan B for your wedding. But it seems to be a big issue and it can cause a lot of stress. And so today we're going to talk about all the key things that you should think about and why you need a plan B. Okay, so one of the biggest things that catches people out when they're planning their outdoor wedding or event is that it will be fine attitude. And I totally get it. Like if you're planning an outdoor event, outdoor wedding, and you want it to be perfect, and when you're planning it, you're thinking, yes, the weather's going to be blue skies and sunshine with very light wind, and it's all going to be perfect and it's going to look fantastic in the photos. I totally get that. But the it will be fine attitude catches people out because if it doesn't go that way, this is where it can cause big issues. So we're going to go into now some of the key reasons why you need a backup plan. So Mon, what's one of the key reasons that you need a backup plan?
The first one would be for guest comfort and for safety. As an example, if it decides to rain, well, your guests aren't going to be comfortable sitting in the rain.
Yeah, definitely not. Strong winds.
Cold temperature or hot temperature if it's the sun's out and they're getting sunburnt. So guest experience and your experience as well, also being outside, the comfort levels need to be met.
Yeah, and just from a safety point of view, if all your guests are getting sunburnt because there's not enough protection, there's a chance of lightning and they're just left out in the elements, it can be more of a safety issue as much as a comfort issue.
Yeah, and your guests will remember that. They always remember the negatives. So they will always go back to your wedding and be like, oh, you were outside. Remember when it rained and we were all drenched and had to go home and get changed? They'll always remember that portion.
So another thing is supplier and equipment protection. Not only do you need to think about your guests and their comfort and their safety, but also the suppliers that come in. So whether you might have entertainment or a band, a DJ, they've got to be protected as well. Your decorations also need some sort of protection. So if you've got all these beautiful hired-in florals that have cost you thousands and thousands of dollars to hire, or elaborate dance floors and those types of things, if they get wet, that's going to cost you money. There could be damage involved. So it's important to think about those aspects as well as thinking about your guests as well.
So on the topic of financial loss, if you are planning on moving your equipment over from your ceremony to your reception, and if it does decide to either rain with your florals and they're fully damaged, you wouldn't actually be able to use them later on. And then the same thing, if you do have fresh florals and it's a really hot day, then all your flowers are going to be wilted by the time it comes. So they're going to look really sad. So with your photographer and your videographer, you have to just be a bit conscious of an outdoor wedding with harsh lighting, especially if the sun is out, and then vice versa. If it is raining, you're probably not going to get great quality either.
The weather can make a big difference in the quality of photos and videography, and so that is something to consider. And then that can be a financial loss, I guess, as well as if you get all your photos back and they're not the quality that you wanted because you didn't allow for the weather and the elements. Now, usually if you've got a professional photographer or videographer, they're going to be conscious of these sorts of things as well. It is raining. Where can we go that's going to be suitable so that we get the best photos possible? That can sometimes be something that has to be decided either on the day or pre-planned the day before. We talk about guest comfort and safety and potential loss of money, all that sort of stuff. But the guest experience and enjoyment is the most important thing. That's why you need to have a backup plan, because otherwise it's just not going to be a good experience, is it? If the guests are getting soaked and cold, they're just going to go home. And there's nothing worse as a couple to watch all your guests sitting there freezing cold and wet and just want to go home and can't wait to get out of the place. Obviously, we're talking about plan B, and it's great to have a plan B. You might go, okay, well, I'm going to book a marquee on standby. In regards to marquees, a lot of companies, if it's over the summer period, especially in Australia, that's their peak season for marquees. So you can't typically get a marquee last minute. If you go, I'm going to leave it to the week before and then do a ring around, you're probably still going to have the stress and you won't be able to get one. We've experienced that a lot. We've had brides ring up a week before just looking for a marquee or looking for some sort of help, and they're disappointed because they can't get a marquee. So what we usually suggest, and what a lot of marquee companies do, is they will allow you to book the marquee, you pay a deposit, and then if you don't go ahead, you then just forfeit your deposit. Now that deposit might be a few $1,000s, but that may be worth it because it saves you all this stress right up until your wedding or the week of your wedding, and then you can make the decision that week whether you're going to go ahead with the marquee or not. The marquee might cost $5,000, $10,000, depends on the size, it could be less, but having that deposit paid and that security that if I do need a marquee, I've got one on standby. I think that is super important.
And then at least you have the week to decide. Obviously, you can look at the weather and then make the decision based on what you're seeing. Things can change.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the risk that you're willing to take.
That's right. If you're 2 or 3 days out or even 5 days out and you see that for the next 7 days, the forecast is nothing but sunshine, then, you can usually make a pretty decent call. But if it's looking a bit iffy and it could be raining and that sort of stuff, you do want that marquee on standby.
Yeah,
so that's normally what we'd suggest, or have another alternative. Could be another venue that's close by that you can move your ceremony to or your reception to if you're doing both.
Or you could just pick a venue that has a backup plan. A lot of the times these garden ceremony locations would have a house or something where they can then just move it if the weather is not looking good. So that could be an option.
That then leads to the key thing of great to have a plan B, but how is the plan B going to be implemented? So a prime example of that is I heard of a wedding a few months ago that was all planned for ceremony outside. It had rained for days before and it was forecast to rain most of that day, but the bride was just fingers crossed, hope it's not going to rain when the ceremony was on. She left it half an hour beforehand to go, no, we can't do it outside. It's obviously going to be raining. Because I had all this furniture that was set up and it was on a country property, the guest then had to move all the furniture in the rain indoors. So not only did you have to have the stress of moving all your wedding last minute, the guests had to work at the wedding, which I think is a worse nightmare. That is one of the other key things. If you've got a plan B, how's that actually going to be implemented? Who's going to move the furniture if it needs to be moved? Is it going to be a guest, or are you going to have somebody on standby, or is the venue or somebody else going to do it? Because as a bride or a couple, you don't want to be moving furniture for the ceremony on the day.
So I think that's really important, is who's going to be doing it, who's going to be implementing it, but at what timings is going to be the last call. And I think that's also so important.
Yes.
30 minutes before your ceremony start is not enough time.
Yeah.
It either needs to be like a night before decision or the morning of, if you've got enough time to quickly make your movements.
Yeah, leaving it till the last minute is just more stress as well. Also, don't forget to think about heating and cooling. We've talked about all those elements as well. Last week, both the events that we had on the Saturday night, both were obviously washed out, and then people were freezing cold as well. So not only did they have to think about the rain, but the guests potentially were outside and they were freezing. So a lot of the guests, from what I heard, went home early because they were just simply cold, and it wasn't a great guest experience.
I guess just overall, with everything that we've touched on, it's going to reduce your stress. All of these things, having the backup plan is on the day you will rock up if you've got the marquee or if you've got umbrellas or if it's indoor. Really thinking about that backup plan, you're going to be so much more relaxed. I know so many couples or brides that I'm speaking to a few weeks prior, and they're just so anxious about what's going to come. They're checking the weather constantly. It doesn't always go your way.
It's not worth the stress, is it?
It's not.
And so, the amount of stress that it causes right up until the day.
And I guess it alters your whole wedding experience.
It does.
Right up until the day, because weather is so unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, you recently heard of a wedding, about a country wedding, and they left it too late, didn't they?
Yeah. So one of the suppliers that we know, they were doing a wedding out in the country, and up until the last minute, the bride really, really wanted it outside, and the coordinator was saying, we need to know an answer. She still went with her gut, still wanted to do an outdoor ceremony, so she completely dismissed the backup plan, and it got right down to the last minute, and it just bucketed of rain. So absolutely everything was ruined. Her ceremony and her reception was outside, so her reception alongside the ceremony was also ruined. Which is so unfortunate. That's just all money gone down the drain.
Yeah.
All those poor guests, everything.
And this is one of the key reasons why you need a backup plan. To save stress, I would personally, myself, would always plan for a plan B from the beginning, obviously, but also maybe have plan for an indoor or covered area. Even if you are having an outdoor ceremony or reception, or both, as we say, maybe organise a marquee and just have it just the roof part and have it all open. And then you can plan to have your ceremony next to the marquee if the weather is perfect. It just gives you that peace of mind, I think. And that's what it's really all about.
So to summarise our discussion today, it is best to always have a plan B, or to have a planner that is going to look after all of the planning.
And all the issues that you might have if the weather doesn't go your way. But fingers crossed it does. But
if it doesn't, you can call us.
You don't need to.